On today's show, we're asking whether we have to leave our brain at the door when we go to church. And whose pants are under the bed?
Hello and welcome to TGI Monday. Today we've had a question from Cricket Sam 64 who left a comment on YouTube. He says, I assume it's a he, I'm a Christian, but I've been pondering recently, what is the right relationship between critical thinking and faith? Really great question. What is the right relationship between critical thinking and faith? So good, just to start, how just explain to us what we might mean by critical thinking in that sort of context.
I suppose critical thinking is where you don't just accept something that someone tells you, whatever that is in any context, but you go away and you think about it and you critique it. So, let me think of an example. For example, if somebody said to me, the world is always green, right? I would say, okay, fine, let me think about that, and I go outside and find that parts of the world are green, but parts aren't.
Yes.
And that's what critical thinking is where you go away and you have a look to see whether what you've been told is actually correct or incorrect.
It's that lovely joke, isn't it, that you've got a philosopher and a mathematician and an engineer on a train, and they see a sheep, and the engineer says, oh, look, all sheep in Scotland must be black. And the mathematician says, well, what we really know is that one sheep in Scotland is black. And then the philosopher says, well, actually, what we know is that half of one sheep is black. You know, and it's kind of, you can look and you can see and you make deductions from it. So, if that's what critical thinking is, how does that relate to faith? Zoe, what do you think?
Well, when I became a Christian, I was in one of those black and white churches. I talked about it last week about healing. What was really difficult was that it felt like you were required, in order to be a faithful Christian, to leave your brain at the door on your way in. And what's amazing about being an Anglican is that we don't think that we have to just be told what to believe, and that we here have quite different ways of approaching our faith lives. And that will, for all of us, involve, yes, the Bible, yes, our traditions, whatever they be, but also experience. And that was the bit where I was hearing very black and white things that didn't match experience. And I vividly remember moving to an Anglican church in London, which is just the nearest around the corner, Love Church Anglican. And the vicar said something. He said, do you know, I think we perhaps need to be a bit more robust with the Bible. And I really remember my reaction as being, oh, backslider. And now I say it so often, because otherwise it is ludicrous, because you know, we really do have to be able to hold contradictions actually in tension, and that's where the faith element comes in, that it's all right for something to be right and wrong.
But the thing is with it, though, is that again, or is a kind of, this sort of lack of critical thinking is evident not just in Christian circles, but all across society. And I've met some massively dogmatic people who will believe anything that is told, as long as it's from their particular point of view. And I think one of the biggest caricatures you have of the Christian faith is that all Christians are like those sort of interesting churches that you just mentioned. And I think if you look at Christian history, like by here we've got like the 33 Doctors of the Church, you've got the history of Western philosophy, we've got all these different books where throughout Christian history we have critiqued the faith and thought about the faith and come to it where faith seeks understanding, isn't it? So the idea that you just randomly accept something and become a nodding dog, that is a kind of modernist caricature of faith.
That's more like radicalisation, or...
No, I don't think, no, but I think if you look at the history of how the church has critiqued itself, and the evidence for that is there.
Yeah,
in front of you.
When you just quoted that faith seeks understanding, that's what I thought of with this question. So that's Anselm, who was one of the great English theologians many centuries ago, and he said, I don't seek to understand in order to believe. So it's not that you have to persuade yourself of everything to be true so that then you can believe it, but I believe in order that I may understand. That actually, it's from a starting point of faith that we can understand the world that God has made and how things work within it and what God is doing. And actually, I think that puts it for me in the right order of things, that it's not, we have to understand everything first and then we can believe it. But actually, if we begin with a position of faith, then we can make sense, better sense,
actually, and that's
of
all
things
right
around us. Yeah.
But the other key thing as well is about our understanding of the word faith, and this is fascinating. This is because if we look at, say, how the word faith was put in the English dictionary about 40 years ago, it meant a position whereby you looked at the evidence and you trusted in something, which is a Christian understanding of faith.
Yes.
Right? Now, if you look at the English dictionary, it says believing in something even though it's wrong.
And I've
Which is basically what it
I've had this
means.
conversation with atheists
And it's fascinating.
so many times, and you can feel like you're banging your head against a brick wall, that actually faith is not just this blind leap that you take in order to believe a bunch of stuff that makes you feel better about life and the future. Actually, faith is a step that you take after having looked at things from the position of your own life in a way that satisfies you. And actually, we do that constantly in everything. It doesn't matter whether you're in science or your philosophy, you're bringing the best of yourself to something, you're asking questions about it, and if you come away satisfied by it, then you actually will commit yourself to it, you internalise it. You may. The thing is though, is that there can be an issue, I think, without people telling people to become lemmings. There is a point where you can become so hypercritical and so hyper concerned that your own spiritual life can drop out. So we've got these amazing kind of weighty tomes on this table. The weightiest, I have to say, being the canonical interpretation of the Song of Songs by our very own Ros Clark here.
That'll send you to sleep if you're struggling with insomnia, I promise.
Song of Songs is quite sexy though. I won't say this.
When I go through the Bible, I don't want to go to the Bible simply with criticism and critique and analysis, because that doesn't actually help my spiritual journey.
We go with our lives.
We go with our lives, and you can't expect everybody to simply be reading all these kind of tomes. So the way I look at it is that I try to approach everything in life not from critical thought, but wisely. And I think actually walking in wisdom is a much better way of walking your spiritual journey, because that way you're not walking as a lemon, but also you're not just trying to grasp everything as being looking for what's wrong in absolutely everything.
Yeah, but I think the thing is with it, I think I often use the pants under the bed analogy, right? Is that if faith is a relationship, right? Yeah, so I'll go with it now.
Yeah.
Right? If faith's a relationship, right? All our relationships involve critical thought, right? Yeah. Now, if you go home, right, and you find some pants under the bed that aren't yours, right? You think, whose pants are they then? And then the obvious thing is to find out whose pants they are. But if you're paranoid about your wife or your partner having an affair, right? What you might do is see the pants and just go, I'm not going to look at that. I'm not going to look at that. I'm not even going to go there. And that's not faith.
No.
That is actually just mind stop, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think what we do need to do is when we do come up against something which makes us think and question, and we need to engage with it. Bit like with questioning or doubting Thomas, is people often criticise him and say, well, Christians, they're not allowed to doubt, because look, doubting Thomas, blah, blah, blah. Now, with that though, Jesus, how does he respond to doubting Thomas? Does he have a go at him?
No, he gives him the evidence.
Yeah,
and I think it's really helpful just to remember when Jesus says, what is the greatest commandment? It's to love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your strength, and your mind. And actually, we don't have to leave our minds. In fact, we're not to leave our minds at the door. No. We're to worship God with our minds. And that does mean engaging and thinking things through and not believing blindly. But it also means that we don't set faith aside in that process. Very quickly.
Yeah, just to say that it can be really hard to do that, and the idea of seeking wisdom and making decisions wisely is what we aspire to. But there are real, honest seasons in everyone's faith life, including clergy, certainly my own, where faith feels much harder because of the realities that you're in, and that sometimes just a little tiny bit of faith and an openness to be wrong is all that's required.
Definitely. Openness to being wrong, really important. Great. Do let us know what you think about that. If you've had struggles or doubts or wondered about how those things work together, faith and reason, please do let us know. Thanks for watching. We don't know what we're doing next time. Oh no, we do know. Do we wait? But do we also want to mention... songs of praise.
On next episode, we're going to be asking what is heaven like, and we're going to be asking it on songs of praise.
Woohoo!